Hey guys, I recently watched all the Bond films and thought it would be a good idea to review them. In-depth reviews on each movie will be coming out shortly. This is the short version until they come out. So, starting off with the Sean Connery era, the first movie of the Bond films, Dr.No. To me personally, I don't think of it as a James Bond movie because he can be replaced by a detective and it won't make much of a difference. But still, a solid start. And a lot of things will not pass in today his standards of film because he's a womanizer, and a lot of the scenes that he does won't just fly off today. There was a good Felix Leiter, and plus it gave us a hat toss and a lot of traits that still carry on today in Bond films. Overall, I will give it a 6 out of 10. Now the second film of Sean Connery is From Russia with Love. I think it's an overall better portrayal of James Bond. It feels more like James Bond. He's overall better in every way from the first movie. The Spectre plot is and it's much about why did the girl did this. I mean, why? It's just, she defaulted. It was a mission, and what, she fell in love with the guy? And also this movie had a good toss. Overall, it's a good enough film, but I think it's a little bit of a step down, if it makes sense. I give it a 4.5 out of 10. Now, the third film, Goldfinger. My god, this is truly James Bond. It has most iconic scenes. A lot of the iconic scenes that we see today in James Bond films are from this movie. The only bad part is it's not so good of a Felix Leiter. Felix Leiter does not suit here. Someone else would have played him. He's still a womanizer. You could get away with that stuff at that era. The plot is a meh, but excellent writing of a villain. This was great. Also, this was the first time the Aston Martin DB5 appeared in the Bond film. And just one critique I have with this: why did Pussy help Bond? Seriously, he practically raped her, man. She should not have helped him. That is the only thing that doesn't make sense to me. Overall, I say this is the best Sean Connery ever did. It's a solid 8.5 out of 10 from me. And just also, here's the thing: what kind of name is Pussy, by the way? Okay, the fourth film, Thunderball, personally I think is the weakest Bond movie ever produced. Here you're basically starting a porno. Decent plot but forgettable movie. Felix Leiter's portrayal was mediocre at best. And also, what was love making in the 1960s? A rite of passage or a way to trust someone? Seriously. This movie gets a 3 out of 10. The weakest portrayal I have ever seen in a Bond film. Not a good movie. Next, You Only Live Twice. The fifth movie in the Bond franchise. It's a space-related plot. It is interesting but forgettable. There are some critiques with this. Why would number 11 have sex with Bond if she intended to kill him? Nevertheless, very important man about to tell valuable information and dies suddenly. Tiger is a lesser version of the My Son's guy. Number 1's reveal was interesting. This scene of Blofeld finally showing his face, iconic. And having a convenient destruct button for spaceship. This was truly something filmed in the 60s. I give it a 5 out of 10. Now the next movie is the first time we see someone else portraying Bond. John Lazenby. This was his first and only portrayal as James Bond. And the movie's name, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. George Lazenby's only portrayal of Bond. Nice introduction to James Bond. Line of this never happened to the other guy was good. It showed a lot. It showed that everything previous that happened does exist here. And this is the first time we ever see James Bond in his own office at his desk, and we get to see some souvenirs of the previous movies. Nice. The plot was good, and Blofeld's portrayal was decent enough. I still think they should have kept some scars. It basically just felt like someone else's entirely. I give this movie a 7 out of 10 only because of how important this is in future references. Bond gets married, his wife dies at the end, only for that, and how it impacted Bond as a whole in the next few movies. Only for that reason, it gets a 7 out of 10. Okay, for the seventh movie, Sean Connery did return, and it was his last portrayal as an Eon production anyway. Overall, Diamonds Are Forever has a good plot. Killing Blofeld in the beginning and bringing him back was done to perfection. Diamond Laser, nice. I mean, now it's play to infinity, but back then I think it was a good plot. It was decent. But a lot happened for no reason except for that the movie can happen in this. So overall I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10 because I think a lot of things here done are for convenience rather than story. Now with the 8th installment of Bond, Sean Connery is gone and we have Roger Moore. His era was perhaps the most defining of Bond with his first movie Live and Let Die. It had a nice opening, dual endings of villains, Kanaga and Mr. Big, nice. I think it was a solid. Solitaire, the lover's card loses powers because of sex. Huh? I don't think that's how things work like this. But anyway, moving on. Rosie wouldn't kill after sex. You really thought that? I mean, does the character of Rosie understand the male mind? It's obvious he wouldn't kill you before having sex, he's gonna kill you after that. And we do have another Felix Leiter, but again I think mediocre at best. And I think the best thing about this movie is JW's comedy relief. I mean, that guy killed it, I love that. But overall I didn't care so much for the voodoo plot. I mean, it's a mystical step for Bond, but I say it's a mediocre Bond film, but it's great. It's campy and fun in a way that only this can be. I gave it an overall of 6 out of 10. And now with the next movie of Roger Moore was The Man with the Golden Gun. It had a nice introduction to the villain. The villain had a signature of 3 nipples. Really? That had to be added. But the movie certainly lived up to its title. The Golden Gun's nice touch, man. That thing really was great. And then the energy crisis plot, I mean, not bad, it was brilliant. And after that, base on a submarine, brilliant. How can you go bad with this? Where was this writer? And after that, Good Night also has some good comedy relief, but not as good as JW's. And if you're asking how is JW in this, he made a cameo for 5-10 minutes, and believe me, his comedy relief is gold. I only wish they brought him back in the future sequels. I mean, this man is comedy gold. And the ending duel, ooh, classic. Can't go bad. And then in the end, posing as a statue of himself to kill the villain, brilliant. This is one of the higher ranking Bond films, no doubt. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now the 10th installment, The Spy Who Loved Me. Nuclear submarine, passable plot. Agent Triple X, really, what kind of name is that? I mean, honestly, even by Russian standards. Bond gives new meaning to the phrase pull out. Seriously, watch this and you'll understand what I mean. And the skiing scene in this is enjoyable, no doubt. But one thing I can't understand is Agent Sergei got out of bed, went to Austria, died by Bond while skiing, and his comrades reported his death before Agent Triple X reported to HQ. That doesn't make sense to me. But I'll let it go because the movie is interesting. And intro to the villain, bland to be honest. And after that, the guy kills the senator because she betrayed him. Okay. Kills scientists to not pay them. Okay. Jaws. Yikes, cannot be killed. And then of course the obvious thing, of course 007 has a friend in Cairo. Why wouldn't he have? And then everyone slowly dies. Triple X and 007 meet and Triple X betrays 007. That was obvious that was gonna happen. And then work together to complete the mission. And then the movie ends with both of them doing the deed in front of their respective superiors with an angry 007 and Triple X kind of thing. This certainly is something of its time, but Man, it's good. Roger Moore's era is, I think, it's great on comedy. It knows when to take itself seriously. It knows when to be a comedic relief. I think he portrayed it greatly. There's nothing bad you can say about the Roger Moore era. And The Spy Who Loved Me gets a solid 7 out of 10 from me. Okay, the next one is the 11th installment, Moonraker. It's very enjoyable. Love the scenes with Jaws, especially in the end. Drax personally I think is just a good enough antagonist, I suppose, but not a great antagonist. I won't go much about this one because it was, as I believe, made only because of the success of Star Wars. But overall, it's a good watch, especially the end where he says, I am broadcasting this both in the White House and the Buckingham Palace. And the picture is a CIA and MI6 agent doing the lovers tango. See, you can't make these things up. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now, the next installment, For Your Eyes Only. Overall, a good movie with nice twists and turns. The opening, I thought it's Blofeld, and it was heavily implied that Blofeld was the one controlling the helicopter with the cat, and the hateful way he says Mr. Bond. That scene, I think, was a wasted potential, honestly. I think if we saw something like a miracle has happened, Blofeld somehow survived and is coming after Bond again, I think it was a wasted potential moment. And also, I think this is the first time we see Teresa Bond being referenced also. Yeah, definitely this is the first time we see Teresa Bond being referenced. And also, just one thing, why isn't he having sex with the niece? After that much now, 007 has a conscience. The only scene that doesn't make sense, he doesn't seem like James Bond. Obviously he's gonna have it. Why wasn't he having it? Why isn't he having sex with her? That just seems like something he would never do. And the Russian involvement in the plot was nice. Not many calls, definitely one of the better Bond films. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Now next, Octopussy. Brilliant. Fabergé egg falsified plot, great. 007 changing the eggs, excellent. Traveling to India and being smirky and taking Han's dice, brilliant. The girl having an octopus tattoo, foreshadowing. The girl on the island, the leader appreciates Bond and one of the few people that have personal ties with Bond besides the Secret Service. Jewel Eyes turning into bomb threat, Bond having to go through a lot to disarm, perhaps the perfect Bond film up till this point, and the one to get a higher ranking than Goldfinger, finally. 9 out of 10. I say this is a great movie. You should definitely watch it. It's definitely a Roger Moore movie, but it's great. It hits every note. Okay, the video might be running a little long, so I think I'll leave some for part 2. But also, before I go, here's a little bonus. In the same year that Octopussy came out, Never Say Never Again also came out. It had Sean Connery return as James Bond. I know, shocking. Sean Connery's last portrayal, and it's basically a rehash of the story of Thunderball, but done a lot better, I think. Not much to say anything else. This is basically the same movie, just a little better. I give it a 6 out of 10.